Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I bring you the Emax Tinyhawk2 race. This was provided to me for review by my friends over at Banggood. Yes, they still exist and they are still shipping. To give you an idea of the timeline for shipping, this quad was placed on order on March 25th and it arrived at my home on April 9th. This is with no special expedited shipping or even tracking. So order to door was 15 days. It's pretty impressive from coming across the world. Taking a look at the outside of the box, you're greeted with the usual faux carbon fiber case that came with the Tinyhawk, the Tinyhawk2, the Tinyhawk2, and the Tinyhawk Freestyle. Basically all the Tinyhawks. Inside of the case, you'll find two 450 milliamp 1S high volt LiPos with a pH 2.0 connector on them. These came charged at 3.8 volts, so at the proper storage charge for a 1S pack. You'll also find a 6-port USB charger that will take a LiPo that's at storage voltage, 3.8 volts, to fully charge 4.3 volts in roughly 40 minutes. You will note that when a LiPo is not connected or at full charge, the green status light will be flashing, and while charging, they will be a solid green color. In the case, you'll find one set of propellers. These are the Emax Avon Blur 2-inch props. I really would have liked to have seen at least one extra set of props come in the box from the factory. With any hopes, these props will last a while and hold up to some crashes, but in past experience, the tips get damaged fairly easily, but the rest of the prop is pretty durable. You'll find a spare hardware bag in this. You'll find a screwdriver, extra bobbins, some screws, and a little black cable that can allow the Tinyhawk2 race to fly on 1S. Now over to the quad itself. It is very reminiscent of the Tinyhawk 2 with the adjustable camera pod, sporting the RunCam Nano 2 camera. This camera has proven to be an excellent camera on the Tinyhawk 2, and I have no doubt that it will be right at home here on the Tinyhawk race. The canopy is made of the usual polystyrene material that you'll find on other Tinyhawk products. The motors are a 1103 7500 kV set. When compared to the Tinyhawk Freestyle, these motors are the same size, but the Freestyle motors were 500 kV less. This is a small enough change that I doubt it will be noticeable. A lot of mass production brushless motors vary one way or the other from their specified kV. The flight controller ESC AO is the same and what was in the Tinyhawk S, the Tinyhawk 2, and the Tinyhawk Freestyle. Not much has changed here, and this has proven to be an excellent setup. Just like the Tinyhawk 2, you can see the Emax has opted out of using the connectors for motor wires, as has been shown that direct soldering the motors has some advantages that outweighs the ability to quickly remove a motor via a header. The flight controller is still using a D8 protocol FR-SKY receiver, but it is possible to run this in D16 mode. However, as I have said in the past, running SPI receiver in D16 mode should only be used if you have no other option, as I have always had poor reception and flight control lockups when using D16 mode. This is only really a factor if you use one of the new FrSky radios with the ISRM module. So this would be the X-Lite S, the Pro models, the X9 Lite, or any of the 2019 branded radios. Dropping support for the outdated D8 protocol is something that FrSky has done and is not going to go back to. Lots of reason why this has happened, and I really don't want to touch on that because it doesn't matter at this point. I have a video on how to bind the SPI receiver to access radios on D16 mode. I'll put a link to that video up in the corner over here. I do highly recommend that if you are using one of the access enabled radios that you pick up an XJT or an XJT Lite module, depending on which radio you happen to own. I'll put links to these products in the video description below. Moving over to the VTX, this is where Emax, I think, made a good decision. The VTX in the race is the same as the Tinyhawk 2 and has a rated power output of 25, 100, and 200 milliwatts. This should be fairly well paired with the range of the receiver. Now this VTX comes locked from the factory just like other Tinyhawks and is very easy to unlock. So hold the VTX mode button which is right down inside of the canopy, while connecting the LiPo for 30 seconds. If it doesn't unlock the first try, then just try it again. Eventually it will unlock. If you change to one of the blocked channels, you'll get a black screen. I really don't like this approach because it makes the user think that the VTX is damaged in some way, but if you do find yourself in this situation, just change back to an unlocked frequency. I still have no idea why these companies do this. They state that the operator needs to have a ham license if unlocking, where in the reality in the United States you need to have a ham tech license regardless of any channel you use on all of this equipment. A frame is cut from a single piece of 2mm thick carbon fiber. I really don't see any issues with that at all. The whole thing is so light that you need to have one serious crash to break it. That is the beauty of the whole toothpick class, that they can really stand up to some abuse. On the underside, you have a LiPo mat and a real LiPo strap this time, with a buckle and everything. Just like all the Tinyhawk products, Emax is still using the same 1S LiPos. But in this case, just like the Tinyhawk Freestyle, in 2S configuration by running two 1S packs in series with a PH 2.0 connector board. And if you wanted to run this as a 1S quad, you can by using the included loopback cable in place of one of the LiPos. The motors are drilled and tapped for running screws through your T-mount props, but the motor shaft is tall enough and thick enough that it grips the prop really well, and they probably aren't going to be needed, and I don't plan on running them with prop screws. Hopefully I don't lose any of them, as I don't have replacement props. The prop shaft measures 1.5 millimeters, so keep this in mind if you're looking for replacement props other than the Avon blurs. The quad weighs in at 40 grams dry without props, 45 grams with props and no prop screws, and an all-up weight of 71 grams with the two included 1S 450 milliamp LiPos. This is about right in line with the advertised weight from Emax. The Tinyhawk2 race comes flashed with Betaflight 4.1.0 with a target of MTKS Maytech F411RX STM32 F411. It is set to have a props in configuration, which I feel is a poor choice for a race quad, as in my own experience, props out or reverse configuration allows the quad to kind of bounce off objects as opposed to being sucked in with a props in configuration. PID profile 1 is certainly not stock, so this does have some modification to the PID settings from the factory. Same with the filter adjustments. The OSD is set up very minimally, which I prefer over the overly cluttered configurations that come from factory quads. VTX tables are already set up, which seems to be a place where old and new Betaflight users seem to struggle. To put the quad into bind mode, go into the CLI and simply type the command bind _RX, press enter, and start the binding process in your radio. Give it a couple seconds and then type in SAVE and press enter. This step is where a lot of people go wrong with using the CLI command to bind. As you can see, the factory configuration has arming being aux1, flight modes on aux2, lost model beeper on aux3, and turtle mode on aux4. So far, this is a pretty well set up out of the box quad with no glaring issues that I can see. Hopefully the tune is good.
Alright folks, this is the maiden of the Tinyhawk 2 race. Let's start off in angle mode just to see how things go. And this thing is very smooth sounding.
By the way, if you like this type of content, please consider liking this video and subscribing if you already aren't subbed. These videos are a ton of fun to make, but they are very time consuming.
Well, it's very smooth. It's very limited forward angle. Very limited. Very, very, very novice. Let's go ahead and switch that into horizon mode. Horizon mode is like angle mode, except for it will allow you to do complete flips, but it does self-level. This feels pretty good. Alright, into acro. This is where we belong. Very smooth sounding. Now, I know I'm not in the perfect spot for optimal RF performance, but I'm in a spot that I'm used to standing in, so I can kind of judge how well it does. The VTX in this is doing really well, actually. You could probably use a little more camera tilt. Feels a little on the slow side, but very manageable. Flies really good. No weird oscillations or bobbles. Just try to make it do some bad flight characteristics here. Pretty good. I definitely tuned this thing well. Camera's really nice. This is way nicer than the Tinyhawk Freestyle as far as the camera goes. A little bit of straggle. That's about right for where I'm at my property. Pretty nice. Emacs did it once again. They've been doing really good for this Tinyhawk series of quads. I don't think the 5-inch quad did so well. I don't think it was a bad quad. I just don't think they're in the wrong market for that stuff. Man, this thing is nice. Wow, this thing flies good. Yeah, don't buy the Tinyhawk Freestyle. Buy this thing. Nothing weird at all. Wow, this thing flies good. It flies really good. Just doesn't fly better than a toothpick though. So usually I can make it around the side of my house like this. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. If anybody says a toothpick's like flying a 5-inch, they don't fly in the 5 inches. They're fun, they don't have the weight to make them fly like a 5-inch. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. Very happy with it. As far as long-term durability goes, who knows? That's just with anything, you really can't judge how things are going to hold to a crash until it happens. There we go. We got that out of the way. It's about 45 degrees. There, that's more like it. That's Tinyhawk Race for you. She runs out of lift quick. Battery starts sagging. Okay, this is fast. Wow, it's fast. It's agile too. Very nice. Wow, that's impressive. I like that. 4 minutes? Yeah, that's not bad. Probably a little less if I left that camera tilt up like that.
So the flight performance of the Tinyhawk2 race is way better than I expected. It is very docile with a lower camera angle that it comes with out of the box. Crank that camera angle up to 45 degrees and it really comes alive. I am so surprised how well this thing flies and how much fun it was. Now, I have flown and built my fair share of toothpick class quads. I even cut my own frames before the craze started, and everybody was waiting for Kebab's toothpick frames to come out. Put a little link to that up there. How does the Tinyhawk2 race stack up to other toothpick quads? Well, that's a loaded question. If you don't want to build your own yourself, then this guy's for you. There are a lot of other bind and flies out there, but none that I've worked on have flown this good out of the box. Emacs has really done a good job with the tune here. With that said, you will see some bobbles when it gets windy outside, but that's to be expected with a craft that weighs as little as this. Parts are all over the place for this little guy as well. Can you build a better toothpick? Of course you can. Which one to build? Well, do whatever Bob Rugi, Kebab FUV, says to do. He's the man with the toothpick knowledge. All I can suggest is to watch the weight. Overbloated toothpicks with too big of motors just suck to fly. Anyways, if you have a comment or suggestions about this little guy, please leave a comment below. I want to invite everybody to check out my Patreon page. I typically do a contest every month to win some gear. Additionally, if you could check out my Etsy store, where I make cool stuff and put it out there for the hobby, like my radio grips. Once again, I want to thank my friends over at Banggood for sending me the Emax Tinyhawk2 race for review. All opinions and findings are my own, with a sample size of 1. And most of all, I want to thank my loyal viewers and Patreon supporters. You are what keeps me going. By the way, this is the first time I've decided to write a script for my review rather than just doing it impromptu. Let me know over here if you like this over my other videos. This certainly is a lot more work. Okay folks, thanks for stopping by and checking this out. Click that link if you want to get one of these or anything else. Using those links help me out more than you could ever know. Have fun, keep flying, and be safe.